Hi everybody, welcome back to the GYST Method Show. My name is Nicole Gerard and I'm here with
Kirby James, and happy to be here today.
Yes, today is an episode on something that we've mentioned in a few other episodes, but we think it's important to actually go deep because it's what happens before you get to a GYST moment, and that is the idea of Presilience.
Presilience.
Yeah.
One of the things that we were talking about is that resilience is not a thing that you can flip a switch on.
No.
It's a learned thing. There's a standard presentation that I do, and based on recent studies in neuroscience, it talks about the role of various factors. Genetics, thanks mom and dad. There's epigenetics, which is the way you live life and how it causes your genetics, your genes, to be expressed. Very, very complicated, not really well understood. And then there's only one other thing, which is your basically stress inoculation. Your ability to go through life and basically exercise that muscle of resilience. And you have to do it again and again and again and again.
Yeah, and I think the reason why this conversation came up is because we were discussing the successes that some of the people we know, both professionally and personally, they've accomplished in their life. And there's a huge tie-in, and you and I, behind the scenes, because we're both athletes in different ways, talk about the importance of doing something again and again and again and again and again to the point where it's normal. You're comfortable with it. You hear that concept of muscle memory with athletes. You've talked about this before as a goalie. And it's just, it's more than just, okay, so let's take the example of the goalie for 1 second, and then you have a great example of someone in your life that's doing this now. If a goalie is on the ice once and plays one game and gets lucky and is able to gauge where the puck's going to go and no one scores on him,
good for them.
Great for them, but they might leave that and think, I've got this, I'm good.
I'm awesome.
Very different mindset, because that goalie can step on the ice the next game and get everything, and everyone scores on it.
Everything goes up.
Garbage. Just because you've done something once, just because you've made it through a particular experience once, does not mean you've built up the resilience to handle that situation in different forms again and again.
Absolutely. And this idea, is in athletics. It's actually in the astronaut programs.
Right.
It's a universal at high performance.
Military?
Yeah, whether it's physical, it's done in chess. Okay, it's done in any number of disciplines where it's your exposure to these situations, not fake exposure.
Yes.
But actual exposure to these situations puts you in a position to learn what it takes to get through them at all, right? To then not just get through them, but to do better at them.
Yes.
And then as the level of, if you will, competition or expectation goes up, you're able to find a path to rise up with it.
Where your skill level gets better.
Well, there can be a physical skill. In a lot of these, there's an equal or greater amount of mental discipline, and that mental discipline in large part has to do with resilience.
Yes, and you see this in business all the time, where organizations that practice stress inoculation and different scenarios we've talked about before, if they are accustomed to and build a culture and a mindset, like the entire organization has the mindset that even though some things may be difficult, they can get through it together, individually, etc. But the organizations that are genuinely resilient in the face of change and market turn, etc., you'll find if you dig a little bit deeper that throughout the organization there's a thread of stress inoculation in positive ways.
Yes.
But they're building up. It's that presilience. It's that strength of mind, body, soul, that they can handle what's coming.
There's a fellow I was lucky enough to work with, in a career some years ago, who's gone on to lead the business continuity group at a major organization.
Okay.
And this is actually one of the key parts of Kevin's job, is understanding his organization and understanding where it is and isn't so resilient, and then working with the senior leadership to devise basically scenario tests where almost nobody knows.
Was this the example you said before of like turn IT off and see what happens, then put it back on again?
Right. And literally coordinating with different parts of the organization to intentionally give it that nudge and watch how it behaves and how it responds. And the behaviors and the responses they're looking for aren't just your basic operational indicators. They want to see how the people respond.
Yeah.
Do they become snarly and nasty? Is their hair on fire? Do they lose their cool? And that's actually a key part. And so to the other example you implied, in my family life, we happen to be, one of my family members trains with an Olympic gold medalist. And that person currently is badly injured. And in anticipation of going back to the Olympics, this multiple time gold medalist is training like a beast with broken parts that are in casts and working at a level that you and I can never imagine. And it's all being very systematic with notes and measurements and observations to drive themselves. Now, this is the elite of the elite. Sure. You and I, I don't know that we're going to get there in sport.
Probably not.
Just saying. However,
we have different goals, though.
We do.
Right?
And I admire business people who look at their career, their business career, like an Olympic athlete looks at their life, which is to say, wow, what do I have to do that goes beyond what my business expects of me? I do stuff at night. I study online. I invent my own ways of challenging and testing and pushing myself.
Yes.
And they do it before they actually need it.
That's the key, though. Because if you're going to be able to handle a situation when it's the real thing, it's not the fire drill, it's the actual fire. If you have not practiced what needs to happen and iterate and change and get better, then when you are presented with the real life situation, you got fight, flight, panic, freeze, freak out, and you don't know how you're going to react. So this whole idea of presilience and stress inoculation, for me, you can say if you agree or not, but it's to try and reduce as many of the negative factors that come in when you're actually presented with that real life situation.
I agree with the observation. I would say it slightly differently.
Okay.
And that is those bad things, the fear, the all that stuff that rises up, we learn through the presilience stress inoculation work.
Yeah.
How to focus more on what we want.
Yes, of course.
But other stuff could still be there. I mean, I could tell you when I get really stressed, the things I don't want are there in the background.
Sure.
Okay. And I've got a piece I've just written about stopping, and we'll come to that before.
I love that.
But I don't focus on that. I don't focus on trying to quell it. I focus on in order to be successful, in order to get through, say, a very challenging time, 100% of my world needs to be focused on that. And I'm striving to try to get as close as I can to that 100, even though there's a few percent over here that are trying to drag me down. Yeah.
I mean, personally speaking, I've done enough work on myself to know what some of my little green monsters are. Especially when it comes to fitness. So when I was an avid runner, doing about 70K a week, I knew that, and of course you don't just wake up tomorrow and start running 10 to 12K a day. You just don't. But on that journey, I was building up the resilience and capability to keep doing it. However, I knew personally that around kilometer 7 during a 10K run.
Oh yeah, that sucks.
I knew that I was going to, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired.
Am I close to home?
Am I close to home?
Is there a donut shop nearby?
So my little hack for me that worked was my playlist was preset so that around kilometer 7, I knew how much time it would take. I started to hear music that was like, oh, I love this tune. I want to keep going. And I would kind of hack what was going to happen.
Absolutely.
Because I practiced, because
Absolutely.
I knew, I built the resilience to get there, right?
There's no end of tools and tricks for this.
Yeah.
On another YouTube channel that I have around Taekwondo, we talk about I talk about this extensively, about helping the Taekwondo students I help teach.
Yep.
How to get yourself to the point where, given the opportunity to not do something perfectly, how to get yourself to perform at a very high level when you have very little room for error.
Can you please share an example? Because I find this fascinating. I know from an intellectual perspective it's possible. I'm terrified at the thought. Can you talk about the process of building that presilience and then ultimately resilience when you're staring at a stack of concrete and you know you need to smash your body into it and that you're going to be okay? I still haven't figured out the wiring needed to be like, yeah, okay, that's possible. Like, what's that?
Yeah, gladly. So again, if you're really into this and actually care, there's an entire series that's growing on another YouTube channel. There's different levels.
Okay.
And I'm going to compare it to business.
Please.
To what you just said. Cognitively, you get that it's actually possible because
I've seen you do it.
Yeah, you've seen me actually do it. In business, you're told, oh, you're going to have to go do this, and you're looking at, say, your performance targets or what you're supposed to achieve, and your initial reaction, and a lot of people have this reaction to breaking concrete is, hell no, you're nuts.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, it's sort of like the little engine that could. I think I can.
It's like,
I think I can.
I could do it.
So there's the cognitive battle
Right.
that you can eventually win. But what you have to get to are things I think that are very applicable to business. Say it's a sales target that you've been assigned, or as the lead of sales in your business, you've been told, we want to see X% growth. And your initial cognitive reaction can be just the same. Yeah, I think we can. And oh crap, are you like, oh, the implications terrify me.
Yes, of course.
You look at a slab of concrete, or 4 as my last test,
Yeah.
and you're looking at it and say, I can do this. And if I don't, oh wow, that could be really bad.
Yes, exactly.
What comes after that is where the discipline kicks in. And the discipline kicks in for anybody who's going to excel is in the techniques. It's in the metrics. It's in exactly how do you do this? Break it down to its component parts.
Small steps.
You have to understand with like masterful expertise. If I've been challenged to grow our sales by 11% when we've never done better than 5,
Right.
rather than raising a finger, other than this one, at least behind somebody's back, it's just like, I'm out of here. You people suck. You're terrible.
You shut down.
Yeah, you just shut down and you just play the game. Instead, if you look at it, it's like, what if it actually could be done?
Yep.
Then the tactician, the person who's really dedicated to achievement of the result will say, great, let's break this down. Show me the numbers. In the case of what you've asked about breaking concrete, show me high speed, ultra slow-mo, so I can study what the people who have done it right, what did they do? How did they do it? In my case, I went and talked to senior instructor Matt. I watched him do what I had to do, and I sat down for an hour in a darkened Taekwondo school, and we sat there and we talked and talked and talked. Like, what was your big toe doing? How did you do this? Where, like obsessive level of detail to understand.
Interesting.
And then you have to deal with your mind. And the mental challenge, and I have episode 4 on my Taekwondo channel, is all about what is mental training. We talk about it all the time. And lots of business people talk about it all the time, but not a lot of people actually have deep experience in mental discipline training.
Yes.
And like you and I know a variety of firms in the training and development space, and they talk about it, but they don't actually work with you. Well, they don't actually work with you to say, and when I'm freaking out, excuse me, what do I do?
It's the difference between theory and practice. And we can all get caught up in big data, get more data, don't take any action.
Philosophy.
Yes, hypotheses, worst case scenarios, and kind of spin around and protect ourselves by saying, I need to learn more, read more, watch more, get more advice. instead of just take that first step.
So the last piece in the puzzle, to answer the question you've asked, is becoming skillful at mental rehearsal, where it's not theoretical or animated mental rehearsal. You actually live the moment.
Yeah.
We've mentioned this many times. We've got a webinar you can subscribe to where I talk to the HR professionals of Toronto at an event. And one of the organizers was a national level snowboarding coach.
Right.
And I got to this point about mental rehearsal, and Ian came up to me afterwards and he's like, oh my God, I never thought I would hear somebody in business talk about how you can do this to create resilience before the fact.
Yes.
It is the secret sauce of Hamilton in Formula One. It is the secret sauce of Rosie McLennan in trampoline as an Olympic gold medalist.
Football, baseball, runners, swimmers. It's the visualization
the
of
Navy
the result
SEALs.
you want. Yes.
A friend of mine is an astronaut.
Yeah.
And if you talk to him, he will tell you the number of hours they spent living the moment sitting in a chair.
Here's a key point though. And I think a lot of people get confused by this when you say visualize your goal, focus on the outcome you want, etc.
The event.
Because we used to do this when I was a competitive swimmer as well. It's more than just picturing yourself on the podium. They're going to put the medal on you. I want to win. It does. But. And there's neuroscience around this too, with the mind-body connection.
Yeah.
Actually visualizing, okay, if we take my running example again. Putting on my running gear, tying up my laces, putting in the earbuds, picturing what it's going to feel like at 1 kilometer, 3, 5, 10, 12. Yeah. Picturing what I'm going to feel like when it's done. It's actually going through all of the steps.
And the emotion of it as well.
Yes. And in business, a lot of businesses get stuck with, and this is where you see all of these wonderful aspirational goals and no strategic objectives outlined, what the actual work and effort and what it's going to look like day to day to achieve it. What are the small steps? They don't picture that part.
That's a good segue, because if we take like the example we're talking about physical activities in sporting events, where you can actually visualize what you're doing.
Yeah.
But to now translate that back to work, what does that really look like? And what it looks like is thinking through, it's like, wow, we have to get our business ready for X. Or me in my capacity as a senior HR person, there's a day coming where I may have to get my direct reports to lay off a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
What is that actually going to look like?
Feel like.
Yeah. And you can now if I imagine myself in that capacity, it's like I need to pull my team together, and maybe cognitively at first, and then later actually run them through a dry run. It's like, great, here's the list of names of who, Nicole, you need to practice laying off Kirby.
Yeah. Or giving constructive feedback to that it might not be well received, or reorganization, or
and it doesn't matter. We've got we actually have a bid before a client right now where that's actually a cornerstone of what we're going to do for them.
Yeah.
Is to coach their people into having conversations that today are very difficult for them, and the model we're going to use is based on what we're talking about right now.
Exactly.
Which is to get them to rehearse real feeling, real stuff with real people.
Yeah, it's called hot seating in the entrepreneur digital marketing world, which we've done a ton, where you put someone in the hot seat, and you've done this from a personal growth perspective.
Absolutely, a lot.
You hot seat them and you put them through and see, and you get used to, we both did this as lifeguards and first response.
Yep.
You run the scenario again and again and again until you get comfortable with that feeling, and you're able to build up that mindset that you can get through it.
So Presilience is about building up your capacity.
It's training.
To be resilient when you need it.
Yes.
Now, I could tell you personally, from the journey I'm on in martial arts, there's no end. You know, you ask anybody who's quote called a master or an expert, and if they're worth their salt, they will look at you and go, there's so much I don't know. I have so much room to grow.
Of course.
Yet it's dedicating yourself to the path where that's just life.
Yep.
I'm always going to work at getting better. And for you, as you're looking to become more resilient, putting yourself on this journey to always be looking to become more presilient, and instilling presilience training in your life will pay dividends on the day that those tough days show up.
Absolutely. And then, which of course will bring us to the actual events where that resilience is going to be required, and that turns into the GYST moment that we talk to a lot of clients about.
And that's an episode I look forward to doing.
Perfect. Thank you, Kirby. My name is Nicole Gerard for the GYST Method. As always, I'm here with
Kirby James. Delighted to see you. And please give us feedback, because we want to know how this is affecting you, what you think about it, so that we can maybe even reach out and offer you some suggestions.
Until next time.